Can you use the app from
Well, I'm
yours?
just trying to use the web browser because the app's not working. Because it doesn't let me update it.
Kristy,
You're on mute.
can you hear us, Kristy? Can you hear me? I'm some random. Oh. Kristy, can you hear us?
Blink twice if you can hear us,
Right. Kristy, can you hear us? Testing, Kristy? Kristy, can you hear us? Kristy, can you hear me?
Oh, it looks like she can hear us. Someone's trying to talk. Can you wave your hands wildly if you can hear us, but we can't hear you? Or not? Kristy, can you hear us? Kristy, can you hear us? Can you do something wild if you can hear us? Like jump up and down?
We should probably have to give her a call.
Oh,
Kristy,
I don't know if you can hear me at all, but I can't hear you.
now we can hear you. I'll keep talking while we work this out.
I wonder her volume.
So I want to just call her. Wait, Brent's on it.
Hey, can you check your volume? Is your volume up? Because we can hear you.
Hello, hello. Is it helping if we keep talking? Hello. Hello, hello. Hello,
It looks like the speaker on that is crossed off.
Because it's on back there,
Oh,
so it's all
okay.
run through the microphones.
Okay. I'm gonna mute you and see if you can hear me once. Can you hear us now? Kristy? Kristy?
Is anybody else logged in to the Zoom?
I'm logged into the
I
Zoom.
wonder if I take your computer, if you can I just take it? And then see if you can hear me?
Can't hear anything.
That's just my phone. We can do that if you want. Sure. Can you hear okay if I do this, Kristy?
It's muted.
Can you hear okay if I do this, Kristy, just from my phone?
I can hear you just fine. Let me get my Zoom back up. I was making sure you were still on the line.
Okay.
Okay,
Can you hear the rest of us,
I can-
Kristy?
one more time.
It's Courtney. I'm just checking to see if you can hear me.
Okay, yep, I can hear that.
Okay.
So if you guys just talk into your microphones. like,
Okay.
shape.
Yeah. And Kristy, if you can't hear us at any point, like maybe just wave your hands
Okay,
like a crazy person or something. Does that sound good? Okay. Okay. With that, I will call this work session to order. Up first tonight, we have the city manager's report.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Kind of some exciting news late Friday afternoon. I've been trying to track down the owner of this. You can kind of see it faintly in yellow. It's as you come into Riverside Park to your left, there's a parcel that's owned by the Raditz family. They're actually out of Palm Springs, California. And Caroline, who's in her, I think, early 70s, finally we were able to connect, and she wants to donate the property to the city of Carver, which would help with our levee project. And frankly, just it kind of cleans up. I think actually Kristy worked on this many years ago when we had the campsites. There was a whole kind of laundry list of private properties. There used to be some homes back there, and this was this property to call the north and west, I guess, or north. There used to be a farm on that property. Obviously, it hasn't been there for quite some time, but we got connected with Dave Anderson, the city attorney, and so working on paperwork. She's flying out here for a wedding in the fall, and then we'll be bringing that donation resolution to the council in October. JCP median maintenance was performed today. We didn't get a lot of notice, but we wanted to get them on the go. So Prairie Restorations, we worked with them on a 2-year maintenance agreement, so they'll be doing maintenance the balance of this year and then into 2025 within the confines of our maintenance budget. So you can see they were out there most of the day, about a 4-person crew. There's, once I can share some details on kind of their maintenance plan. I don't have them in front of me, but needless to say, they specialize do this throughout other communities in the metro. So that's going to be our plan going forward for the near and somewhat long-term future. The Ironwood Park fields will be closed tomorrow for maintenance. We're working with Groom and Bloom to do some fertilization, aeration, weed kill, etc. 216 Carver Creek Place. I remember that was formerly the Tarcella home. Just learned today that that's been purchased by a new property owner, and they've been in connection with our building inspections team on getting plans together for a new home on that property. So I want to give some kudos to Brenda Good. She's organized, as you remember, the vehicle fair was delayed just because of the flood, so we've combined that into kind of a multi-functional event with the annual Back to School Bash, vehicle fair, and then relocating the farmers market for that August 27th to Community Park. Just jumping down because Southwest Transit is providing park and ride services out of Carver Station over the next few weeks for the State Fair and Renaissance Festival. Also working with the city attorney on a proposed ordinance for your review to look at overnight parking at Carver Station and the parks. Every so often we'll get complaints regarding overnight parking, and we have signs. However, based on feedback from the sheriff's office, there isn't really a lot that they can do with signage, and so they recommended that we adopt an ordinance prohibiting overnight parking to whatever degree, so that could be from like 1 to 4 or 12 to 5, but quite, I would say every couple of months we'll get either like a semi or an abandoned vehicle or what have you, either in a parking lot or at the Carver Station parking lot that tends to draw some resident complaints and then some maintenance issues. So we want to bring a draft of that to the council to look at a future work session. And then finally, just a small update. I think you all saw that via email, but our strategy has shifted a little bit on the sign ordinance rather than just taking that small permit process for placing signs, event signs on city property. I thought it would be best just to do a holistic approach and look at that sign ordinance from A to Z. So Aaron Smith, the city attorney, and I are working on that, and we're basically going to restart that process. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Kristy, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for tuning me in tonight. Brent, I just have a question, and maybe something the council wants to think about. We don't have any municipal parking lots besides the little one down by Harvey's, right?
When you say municipal, it makes me think of cities, so that means, I think of all the parks and fire station, et cetera, so.
Okay, well, the reason I'm asking is because, we don't have a lot of spaces, extra spaces for people to park overnight. Now, we allow overnight parking in a lot by Harvey's, correct? That's just considered like a city street would be if you were to park on that, right?
We don't formally, no.
Okay. Just thinking, if you look at like the city of Victoria and some other places, they've got in Chaska now, they've got these city-owned parking lots where people can park if they need to. Is Southwest Station is owned by us, the entire parking lot, right?
Correct.
I know it's not really in our hub right now of businesses and such, but besides the 5-6 spots that are down by Harvey's, if someone were to come to town, let's say doing whatever, I mean, there really isn't any parking places for them besides side streets, I guess, that allow it, or those little parking lot, that little parking lot.
Well, the only place that's restricted for overnight is the downtown, like on Broadway. There's no overnight restriction other than if there happens to be over 2 inches of snow. And anything that we do informally would be just nice to memorialize to whatever extent in an ordinance that the council agrees with. I think as we've seen, as we kind of mature as a community, we don't want to be in a position where depending upon who you ask, you can park in certain spots. And so this will frame up some consistency. And if the council wants to have certain locations that do allow overnight or overnight through a permit or what have you, you can certainly do that. But right now, if there is a vehicle, we just don't really have a set of instructions really.
Kristy, I know that I've talked to Brent. There's been a number of semis that park overnight and like multiple nights overnight at Carver Station. And
Okay.
I have a strong desire to not see that turn into a informal truck stop.
I agree with that. It seems like it's such a large space that looks so empty most of the time. I guess if we're getting a lot of complaints, that's one thing. And I obviously don't live up there, so I don't see it. I don't see it overnight all the time. I guess it makes sense, but it seems like we have so much space up there, and yet we're saying it's got to be completely emptied every evening.
For me, I think it's just the overnight parking. I think if somebody lives in Cologne and somebody else lives in Carver and they want to go to a concert and meet up here and leave their car, I have no issues with that. But it's the overnight that I think makes me worried.
Okay.
And I know, just in our house,
Yeah.
when we see cars in the community parking lot overnight and really late, it draws some questions and concerns.
I think it'll be interesting to see what staff comes up with, only because it's hard to say, I like your example, if you go to a concert, but what if you don't get back till 1 o'clock in the morning? What is the time frame of overnight? How do we gauge it? So I'm kind of thinking out loud here about some things that may be difficult about that at the same time.
Any other comments? All right. Council requests.
I don't have anything.
I don't have anything. We're doing this in a different order, just,
We've been doing this for like 2 months.
I know I missed the last one. I know, I watched last month, but I was.
Okay, anything from you, Kristy, for council requests? No, okay. All right, number 4, the 10-year building and facilities plan. Mr. Mareck?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So again, this is, I would say, one of the chapters within your long-term financial plan. We looked at hiring, parks planning, equipment. Then tonight we're doing building and facilities, and then after the budget, Aaron Schmidt is doing utilities infrastructure. So in front of you is the current plan that was adopted within the confines of the long-term financial plan. last year. As you can see, quite a few changes. We kind of went around and around on what we should be doing with the fire station and long-term for public services, and based on budgets and scope refinements. You can really, this is frankly a really great example of why you need to look at this every year. So moving forward, the strategy that we've discussed is a complete new public services facility. We have a space study from Wold in 2021 that called out for a need of 25,000 square feet. Right now we have just over 11,000. That calculation doesn't contemplate some of the off-season and kind of technical storage that we have at the treatment facility or kind of underneath the water tower. We, from time to time, depending upon the day, have somewhere around 12 vehicles or pieces of equipment stored outside on a regular basis. That can vary by season and frankly the week, depending upon what we're doing. We basically kind of run our main operations out of the facility at 801 Jonathan Carver Parkway. But some other space needs that aren't listed as far as internal that we've talked about too is the need for salt storage space, and then exterior storage or kind of like an equipment yard or boneyard, material storage, etc. And so thinking about that and thinking about long-term needs for a facility. So here I just kind of give you some pictures of what the facility looks like from an overview. The picture on the left, you can see the salt storage, but you can also see payloader and a plow truck. You can also see like our garbage truck and other pieces of equipment that are parked behind. Our other main facility was a lot of former things. Used to be a county highway building, former fire station. Many people probably remember that for decades. So picture on the far left is the salt brine tank. And then you can see we have our building inspections vehicles in there, the sewer jetter vehicle. But I think the middle picture also tells you something that I think the council's credit, that parking lot has been a big hit by the Getaway Motor Cafe. But I think that's probably kind of an ongoing story with how that space is going to be seen differently with the Miriam Junction Trail and the use of that parking lot. I would offer this as an editorial that the space needs for public services is not because of the transformation that you're seeing down there or a plan for a future park. The space needs for public services are existing whether or not this space stayed in place, just based on the growth of our community, the number of trucks and equipment that we have. As you know, you're borrowing close to $1 million tonight on equipment, and if you don't have enough space to house that, it puts you in a position to think about how you're valuing that equipment. And so we are not at a place where we're busting at the seams, but as you can see from some of those pictures, we need to start that planning process so that we can have a way to kind of ease the community into a conversation and make sure that the council feels comfortable with what our planning looks like. So one of the first pieces is land acquisition. And so what we're hoping to do is present to the council later on this year, perhaps into 2025, options for land. So some of the things that we're looking at are related to the impact of delivery of services. So if you're located on the far south end or the far north end, that impacts, how far it takes you or how long it takes you to get to a certain part of town, how much the land costs. One of the bigger pieces that I've been working with Aaron Schmidt on a lot is the cost to bring infrastructure to any one of these sites. So some sites are a little bit further out, but then you might need to bring a street or water and sewer services. Another piece that we're looking at is the ability to co-locate our future water treatment plant. If you remember, that's for the early part of the 2030s. All of this is kind of contingent on growth, opportunities for future growth and expansion. And then last but certainly not least, location compatibility. So Is this located next to a commercial area, or does it have a neighborhood behind it? If you think about kind of the around-the-clock services public services provides, and thinking about, trucks backing up, or a payloader putting salt into a truck at 2 a.m, wanting to think about what it's around. So this is our first process. Once we figure out the land and the council makes a choice on that, that'll begin some of our next processes. So here's kind of a rough concept. So think of this as just blocks on a piece of paper. So try not to, even though we've all done it, or I know I've done it, try not to get caught up in how it lays out, but more on these are the uses and this is what it would look like. You could move the puzzle pieces around, if you will. We'll want to verify that 25,000 still is that right amount, but our kind of anticipated schedule, 24, 25, you're looking at land. In 26, looking at, what it takes to bring that infrastructure there. So you'd know what it is, but then you'd be developing a plan to get it there. Developing building plans and specs. Community engagement is a huge piece, with the goal of hopefully being able to construct a facility in 27 and occupy in 28. And so probably by the end of 28. So if you look at it, although it seems, or at least to me, it seems like, oh, this is gonna go pretty fast. 2028 is still relatively, it's like 4 years away. And this is what I used the word anticipated intentionally, meaning that, there could be other things that influence this, but this is, I would offer the roadmap for the city council to consider to get us there. The second piece is looking at costs. And so with the help of Wold and the city engineer, looked at kind of building a plan around this future public services facility. And this is a different set of numbers than you're used to looking at in some of the previous exercises. We looked at expanding and maybe holding on to some of the public services building, and then having kind of a sister building next to it. We aren't in a position where we can co-locate buildings and where our existing space is. So this contemplates moving the whole operation to another site. So using that 25,000 square foot number, we got a number at $350 a square foot from Wold. Was able to test that. As you can see on your right, Orono built a building, or bid a building for Public Works at $255 a square foot in 2022. So it might be a tish high, but if you want to be in a position where you're not by surprised by numbers, I think it's a good ceiling to look at that. So you have an estimated construction cost just under $9 million. Then you have soft project costs that gets into design, engineering, et cetera. Estimated land, so that number could double. I mean, if you co-locate a water treatment plant, you might be looking at 15 acres, and then an estimate, depending upon the land you choose, you could have up to $1 million in street and utilities costs. Again, depending upon the site, depending upon if you co-locate. But we do think a reasonably conservative number is 14 million. And to put that in perspective, we were probably around 5 million for all in for the city hall. And this is an office building compared to, what would amount to be a steel framed building. But it does go to show like what costs are, and how the world has changed since we were working on a city hall project that was bid probably in 2017, I think 2018. Then with that, I want to just kind of pause before I get into the balance of it. If there's any questions on some of these costs or how they're put together, methodology or otherwise.
I'm not seeing any questions.
So if not, just leaving a little
Kristy
play.
does.
Oh,
It looks like Kristy has a question.
I just have one quick question, Brent, because in the report it said that we were looking at 6 different locations or exploring 6 different locations. Is that right?
correct.
Okay, so then what we're seeing though mostly is revolved around by the water treatment facility?
No, the costs here are, I would say, a collection of averages where it could range. Some might be a little more, some might be a little less. The construction costs for building are an estimate based on wool, but if you look at like land or street and utilities, that's gonna be a function of where it's located. I mean, and, you know, I would say there's land choices that are, if you say like the lowest cost land is X, there are properties that are 10X that, and so there is a range, and so trying to kind of figure out, you know, my plan is to bring, I would call like I don't know if I'm using this right, but basically like a matrix and say like, okay, these are our 6 categories and we're gonna assign point values to these 6 categories, like 5 is the best, 4 is whatever, and then we're gonna grade each site and then present it to you. No, it doesn't mean that that's the universal grade, but it's in staff's opinion, this is the grade for the site. And then we can go through a series of Q&A and you can kind of figure out what you think the best site is. But one of the things that we've learned by doing land acquisition, you know, in the past is to not basically put all our eggs in one basket. And so we are in the process of kind of informally assembling, you know, what we believe we could acquire that either through direct questions or looking at what properties are listed for. Some properties are listed, but there is a wide range. And within that range of land, there's just as big of a range on street and utility costs, ranging from, you know, you extend something by 100 feet versus you know, build a whole collector road system and extend utilities to an area that maybe wasn't planned for utilities. So there's a wide variety of choices and options.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And you expect that this fall? Okay.
Yeah, I would say late fall or possibly early 2025.
Okay. But soonish.
Soon,
Well,
next
I
6
mean,
months.
6 months, yeah. Okay,
I would say late fall, early winter.
okay. Soon.
Although this isn't in the plan, just kind of showing this to the council. So at one point, you know, hopefully by 2028, Public Services is relocated. You know, we're not proposing this the year after, but at some point there'll be a need for an investment to retrofitting and right-sizing the existing fire station Public Services into a complete fire station. You had a little bit of this conversation or exercise when Wold did the space study. And so the graphic on the right is a representation of a concept that could repurpose some of that main floor space. One of the things that we did do to prepare for this is, if you remember, the building crew, so Chief Trimbo, Deputy Chief Walsh, Paul Schultz, the architects worked on designing a space with this current remodel that wasn't going to take away options in the future. So, you know, no accesses are blocked. They did, you know, I would call it some ghost sketches of different things to preserve corridors, access, et cetera. So cost scope year to be determined. And then finally, so our proposed plan update, you can see here at, you know, I would say 2025 might be the earliest, but if you were to find a site where you could co-locate Public Services and a water treatment plant, I would say on the high end, you'd be at 3 million again, sliding scale depending upon the property. We have a maintenance project at the church by the river. It's a little bit higher, but you can, that's in the historic district, so we're gonna be looking at wood siding and paint, et cetera. It's a quite a bit more extensive process than a regular reside project. And then incorporation, again, of the facility and infrastructure bond issuances in '27. We have a placeholder for some unnamed maintenance projects in 2029. The City Hall will be 10 years old by then. But as we get closer, we'll be able to better identify what those projects are. But we just wanted to keep that number in there, and then a re-roof of Carver Station in 2033. And then I listed that fire station renovation at a TBD. But I don't want to forget about that because that'll be a big project when that time comes. Anything you want to share related to that, Chief?
No,
Can you come up, please? Thank you.
I think when we look at that down the road, and who knows when, 8, 9, 10 years, we'll need to be thinking about sleeping quarters and things like that as Carver grows and evolves. We'll need to be thinking about some sort of overnight duty crews, things like that. So, but it's a ways off. We did plan this remodel that will kind of help that. Like Brent said, we left corridors or spaces to move between the two bays and stuff like that with this remodel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any questions, comments on the 10-year buildings and facilities plan? Kristy, are you waving? Kristy, did you have anything? Okay,
Oh, I
go ahead.
just, so we were able to get the roof and the sidewalks done for Carver Station this year from our 2024 plan. I saw that dropped off. Is that because
The roof is being done, the sidewalks are gonna be taken care of. They
Okay.
haven't been done yet, though.
Okay. Good.
I have a question about the church by the river, if we have time. How did it, go with, the recent high water and the flood on the river? Was it just kind of typical damage, or was there anything significant?
Paul
that-
hasn't reported anything, but I can find out, report back.
Okay, anything additional on the buildings and facilities plan? Nothing from Eric. All right. Thank you.
Big one.
Moving on to the 2025 general fund budget draft. Tschudi and Mr. Mareck.
Yeah, so Lynn has a really nice presentation put together on this. I provided what I'd call maybe more of a dictionary or encyclopedia kind of presentation of the budget. What I would like to share is that hopefully, because this was our goal, is that everything that you see in this draft budget, and it's named draft as intentionally, we're not proposing this. What we aim by the draft is to be a representation of a series of conversations, discussions, and planning that the city council has had over the last year. And so there shouldn't be anything that you see in here for the first time that, whether or not the collection of these investments is something that balances with the tax impact that you feel comfortable with as a council decision. But the new pieces that I have in that kind of image to the right related to lieutenant or performance pay, capital equipment investment, and the like are all things that we've talked about. We're here to be your guide to get you to the place that you want to go, but we're not proposing, we're not advocating for this. I would offer that this is the most consequential policy decision that the city council makes on an annual basis. And so we don't want to be in a position where you feel like we're leading you in a certain way. So whether or not you see an option on the table or a scenario, and you're not seeing the one that you'd like to see, we can build scenarios for you. We'll just need your direction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lynn.
Thank you for that, Brent, and he did do a very nice job with that memo, so if you had time to read it, there's some guidance in there and some really good points. So with that, I'll get started on the general fund budget, draft 1 for 2025. It's hard to believe that we're here already. So when we're looking at the budget timeline, we're right there in the middle. We received the tax capacity information from the county last week, which allowed me to put some additional information in this presentation for you. such as impact to the average value home and tax capacity, tax rate. The next big star will be to adopt the preliminary levy on September 16th, and then so on and so forth. And then in December, also the final levy will be due. So when we are developing the budget, working with the department heads and getting ready to prepare for council, we really thought about our strategic priorities from this last session. And then I put them up here just to remind ourselves what they are: enhanced financial strength, stable infrastructure systems, focused communications, improve operations, and responsive development. And you know, the presentation that Brent gave, the presentation that Aaron's going to give, all of those things fall under this, as well as a lot of what we do when we prepare the budget, the CIP, the long-term financial plan. And so we think about those things as we're presenting and developing the budget. Revenues. So local government aid is planned to be at $209,701. That's about the same level that it was in 2024. And we are forecasting our building permit revenue at somewhat of a conservative level of $560,000 for next year. And there were no other large increases to other revenues, such as fees that we take in and things like that. Here's just a graphic to show where our revenues are allocated. As you can see, a majority of it is coming from the property taxes. And then the next highest is that building permit revenue category. We also get a nice chunk from that LGA, as I presented. When we're talking about operating expenses, I like to highlight just a few of the different things that are happening in 2025. You can see that our assessing contract is increasing a little bit. That's because we have more homes. So obviously there's more to do. And we got that number straight from the assessor. And then fire protective gear is important. So they're replacing different fire protection gear. And our police contract, we added that dedicated lieutenant, our portion of it, as we spoke about at the last meeting. And then there's just a slight increase of the remaining amount. We left Southwest Prime at the $45,000 level, and we can take guidance from council on that if you'd like to increase it any more. And then we planned for a 10% increase in general liability insurance across all departments. Employee pay and benefits. We're planning for a July 1 hire in public services utility tech 2, and actually that's changed since I did this. So it's actually going to be a mechanic starting in July. Things are always changing. So as you can tell, like when we do the long-term financial plan too, you know, I'm going to try my best to keep it up to date. But things are just always changing, which is why I just love Carver. I mean, it's just so fun. And then we also are having an additional part-time seasonal planting specialist, you know, keeping those medians looking good and the plantings and the baskets. Benefits, health and dental. Right now we're assuming a 10% increase for health and a 5% increase for dental. And we are proposing, we've presented this a couple times to council from our classification and compensation study. We're proposing a full milestone adjustment for all union and non-union employees per the 2024 comp study. The impact is down below. So for the new hires, because we're hiring halfway through the year for that mechanic, and then the other one is just a part-time, it would be a $13,100 addition to the general fund. The other would be for the enterprise side. And then for the full-time employees, for that class and comp adjustment, and for the adjustment to the new year, it would be $149,665. It's about a 14% increase. Let's talk a little bit about capital improvements. So one of our strategic priorities was to increase how much we're putting away to buy things with cash. So we have Parks capital contribution set at $50,000. That's up from last year. Last year we did $25,000, I believe. Fire department capital contribution, we're aiming to put $30,000 into the fire capital. We have a planned purchase in that department for some SCBA equipment of $90,000, and that is in conjunction with their expansion. So that'll happen in '25. And then for the general capital contribution, we have $125,000 planned, and 50 of that is, we delayed a $50,000 contribution last year for the 3rd Street Bridge, just to lower our levy a little bit. And so now is the time that we need to contribute that extra $50,000. So that's what part of that is for. But other than that, we don't have any planned capital purchases in the general fund for next year. So here is where we allocate all of our expenses. Sometimes it's nice to just see which departments are getting, where is it going? Public services, these are our streets, our parks, all of that. Building inspections, admin. So market value change. The new residential construction added about a 4.3% in market value, but the existing residential market value remained almost unchanged. A little different than what we've seen in the past. We've seen some pretty big increases the last few years, so this was a little bit more of a level growth, I guess you could say. Here's just a different way to look at that. You can see how it really increased, like I said, from between 2020 and 2022, it just really, a lot of growth. We're still having a lot of new residential growth, which is great. So I spoke about this before. Our levy has 3 components here at the City of Carver. We levy for the general levy, which supports city operations. And that's plowing, maintenance, parks, trails, fire, police, admin. And then we have our debt service levy, which pays the debt on city projects and buildings that we've done in the past, and we need to make the payments on those. And then we have our street maintenance levy, which supports current and upcoming street mill and overlays and reclamations, seal coating, and other maintenance. And council made that apparent, and they're being transparent, and they're saying, hey, residents, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna fix our streets. So this is why we have 3 different parts to our levy. So here's just, so you can see visually how our levy has changed in the last 5 years and what the components are of it. So you can see the overall increase from the levy from year to year, but then you can also see the components and what has changed in them. So far right now, for our draft 2025 levy, we're looking at a 12.61% increase from 2024. Last year, we were at a 13.75. Our street maintenance levy is increasing $100,000, and our debt service levy is also increasing $100,000.
Does that include the one that?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Here's another nice, is that me echoing? Okay. Here's another nice way to look at it too. You can see the different components of the levy and then the total levy. So here, Reed, to your point, and what is included in that debt levy. You can see the debt falling off. You can see that our 2015A, a portion of that is falling off because part of that was an equipment certificate. And then you can see the 2024A estimated payment there, for a total increase of 8.3%. But last year, it was a decrease of 8.5%. My goal in council is to keep that at kind of more of...
Kristy, you're not on mute. Kristy? Kristy, you're not on mute.
I know. Well, you put the dog back in the house.
Kristy, you're not on mute. Okay.
Okay, let's keep going.
is kind of to keep that more of at a level, and I've mentioned that before. So that will come with time as we grow. So let me just talk a little bit about the street maintenance levy and payment management plan that Bolton and Mink has helped us develop. These are the plans for 25. This will be year 4, and we will be increasing from $420,000 to $520,000. And we are looking at a reclaim of Sunny Ridge Drive, which has an age of 29 years, mill and overlay of streets south of Ramsey Avenue, seal coat on Ironwood Drive and Ironwood Park parking lot, and fog sealing various trail segments. And can you believe it's seal coating 6th Street West already? High Street, Kirchy Hill Drive, and then fog sealing the trail. So time just flies. So now I'm presenting, our average valued home went from $428,500 to $433,500. It's a little bit of a slower, increase than what we've had in the past, which can be good, can be bad, whatever way you look at it. So the city tax rate in 24 was 39.85. With the proposed 25 tax rate that I'm showing here, the average valued home would pay $128 more in 25 if their home increased from that $428,500 to that $433,500. So $128 more annually, which is a 7.5% increase. If their home stayed the same value, which does happen, it does happen, they would increase $108. So we could run scenarios on this all, I can run as many as you would like, but so I just wanted to give those 2 examples tonight.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
for future
Yeah.
feedback? Could we see, it sounds crazy, but a scenario if someone's home value goes down?
Yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
sometimes I think it's so surprising what the calculation and how that works, and it's outside of the city's control. It's just
Yep.
the mystery of the calculation
Absolutely.
that someone would be shocked
Sure.
or jealous or
Yeah. Yep.
overly excited.
Yeah. So I usually present this at the TNT, but I thought I'd throw this out here now because it kind of represents where we're at right now at the proposed 2025 budget. Representing the taxes on a monthly bill for city services. So an increase from 2024 for an annual increase of $128. Actually, I did this wrong. This is for an entire year. Yeah, this is for an entire year, so it would be way less than that. Way less.
Could, I know you also take feedback on the presentation for truth and taxation. Could you either write that this is annual or do the numbers so that it's the monthly?
I would absolutely do the numbers so that it's monthly,
Okay.
because it would look a lot less.
Well, but also because I've always liked that format. of,
Yeah.
breaking it down to, you get everything else monthly.
Yes.
This is what it equals monthly.
Absolutely. Yep. So you can see that the debt for the street and facility improvements is at the top, and then the parks, snowing, plowing, fleet, field maintenance, facility maintenance, fire protection. It's just nice to see that people can see where their dollars are going when we break it out like this. Police protection, they just think, oh, city government taking my money. Sometimes when you put it on line items like this and then you break it down per month or per year in this case, sometimes it feels a little better. So tonight, staff is here to receive feedback from council. As Brent said, we're not here to push you in any direction at all. So we're here to make adjustments to the budget according to feedback from council. And then we're still waiting for solid numbers on health insurance and dental, and that usually doesn't come until October, hoping it won't make a big effect on the budget. Draft number 2 of the general fund budget, with whatever I take back from tonight, will be on September 3rd. And then presenting preliminary budget levy for adoption on the 16th. So with that, I will take any questions.
Right.
Actually, I'm just gonna have a few more
Yes.
nuggets just to kind of wrap up Lynn's point. So some of the things that I just want to draw your attention to before getting into the discussion are to some of the, what I'd call newer pieces or just reflections is we talked about the lieutenant position. So that's a position that would be shared with the city of Chanhassen and Victoria, so our prorated amount would be 17,000. I think amongst other challenges, this is a bigger challenge because we don't know exactly what that looks like. But it's kind of that additional service. So one of the things I wanted to really point out is I don't think we're getting below average service, or this is not a less than, it's a more than. It's a value adjustment for the council on whether or not you believe there is enough value in that or there is enough need in that at that time. A couple other areas, so you might have noticed that we're showing a $1,000 pension increase for the fire department from $4,200 to $5,200. This is in relation to, so we switched over from a defined contribution to para about 2 years ago, I believe. So we, as a part of that process, have para run an evaluation on different increases, and based on their methodology and the health of the fund, the pension can be increased by $1,000 from $4,200 to $5,200 without any additional contributions from the city. So it feels like a really low cost, high benefit impact for our firefighters. In connection with the fire department, one of the things that you might have not noticed or paid attention to in the past is that our officers have always been paid by a stipend system. So not kind of what I'd call maybe a more modern pay system where folks are paid by the hour. They're just basically paid a lump sum amount quarterly or monthly. I'm not sure what we were using, but we want to kind of get out of that. And so Lynn and Callie did a lot of work related to that, of converting that stipend amount to an hourly pay amount using past hours worked, and then a 5% increase from last year to this upcoming year pay 2025. And so you can see those numbers listed for pay. Connected to that, one of the things that we're going to be working on going into 2025 is a little bit of I call it a minor restructuring of the department. So one of the things that we felt like we heard from the fire department survey was creating more opportunities for leadership and development. And so connected with that, so right now we have 3 chiefs and 6 captains and then an admin support for the department. What you see in this budget, well, it's really actually a budget neutral. So one of the things that we're going to be doing, unless happy to take feedback on this, but creating a 4th chief's position with, I would say very minimal position requirements. So basically anyone could apply for this. We're trying to develop leaders within the department, and so giving them this 4th chief's position is basically a way to be mentored by some more experienced chiefs, but still get some real working knowledge of how the department runs, and a way to kind of cultivate leadership in a kind of a new and interesting way, as kind of a way to kind of like tighten up leadership. And kind of at this point we have 1/3 of the department is in a leadership position. We are going to be taking our captains from 6 to 4, so we'd have 4 chiefs, 4 captains, and an admin. And so just for the sake of transparency and kind of everybody has an opportunity, we're going to, I know we just did it last year, but we'd be running then a full slate of position openings this fall. So from admin through fire chief, then it would be advertised under this new pay system heading into 2025. Just wanted to kind of point out, Lynn touched on it briefly, but the street maintenance plan, I think that's a real testament. If you look at it going from 420 to 520, you've really supercharged that capital investment to the point where if you look at that table that's within that memo, you're taking really some big investments into street maintenance to the point where I would offer that Carver is a leader in street maintenance, that you're not going to have like parts of town that are really desperate. Now, once we get, there's always going to be that one that's next up that's waiting, for their neighborhood to go. But to think, about 4 or 5 years ago, the city was putting in like $40,000 to $50,000 in. And I bring that up to broach the discussion, or have the council broach the discussion of how are you going to attempt to do that with your other funds? And can you do it all at once? No, but can you ladder it up and put yourselves in positions where each of those is kind of building towards something related to capital? I did put, because the council has talked about it quite a bit, about the skate park. You would have the opportunity to invest like 25,000 of that 50 to do equipment, or you could say, you know what, we're gonna put all that 50 towards equipment. If you would do that, though, you would push the community park shelter back by a year. Second piece on equipment, I did mention to the council we received just over a $56,000 premium on equipment. That's another option that you might want to strategize about, where you could reduce your capital equipment contribution. So right now you're at about 125 for equipment and public services. You could do a one-time reduction and reduce that from 125,000 to 64,000 essentially, because you'd have that additional premium to fund. The downstroke to that is when you get to next year and that contribution goes from 125 to 175, then you have that much more that you'd be adding to your levy. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight, and I'm happy to take questions, I'm sure it'll be a point of conversation, but added a table today just related to the options related to employee pay. Did some analysis. So our average length of service for an employee is 6 years. Using this step scale, we're averaging about two and a half steps out of an 8-step scale currently. Milestone 1 would be 3.5 steps, and my full milestone is 4.5 steps. And anecdotally, I've shared this, I believe, with some of you in relation to asking for applicants that we just went through the public services utilities tech 2 spot. We teased the pay for 2025 full milestone pay, just put anticipated just to see what kind of impact that would have. And we went from 8 applicants for when we hired in July without posting that at the 3214 to just under 20. I think it was like 18 or 19 applicants when we said anticipated pay for 2025 at 3409. And I think ultimately, although there are a bunch of different nooks and crannies within this full milestone or milestone plus 1, I would offer that one of the biggest impacts is wherever you land is getting our public services and some of our other like entry-level folks that have been at entry level for multiple years because of the way our current system works. That's contributing more to some of our transition than the pay, because our pay ranges are right at market. In the 2025 schedule calls for a 5% above average. So it's not that the city is paying anything less than our peers, it's that the majority of your employees at this point are anchored at the low end of the range. And so I would offer the choice to the council is just, how much, how aggressive do you feel like you can be within the confines of the budget and taxes to get out of that? And I'm not going to offer I know the path, other than giving you the data and hopefully the information that you need to make your best decision. So with that, Lynn and I are here to answer any questions.
All right. Questions, comments? Who wants to go first?
I can go first. I think it got answered, but I was gonna ask the question on the updated memo, and thank you for sending that, or emailing us that it was in there. The last page it talks about within the fire department, an extra vehicle, future small vehicle. Is that then for when there becomes a chief 4? Or is it to replace, or are we adding a vehicle?
Where do you see a vehicle?
Future small vehicle purchase.
I think the next
Is it
one's
maybe
in like
already in the plan?
2027, I think, or 2028.
It's on page 4 of your memo, Brent.
Yeah. Almost smack.
In the,
That's just in general future small vehicles, so like command vehicles within the
Okay.
confines of the equipment plan. There isn't a specific vehicle that's planned like for next year.
Okay, I didn't know if it was replace something or if the officer change as far as,
No, the officer
adding a
change
fourth
doesn't,
chief.
Yeah, so
If there's a
the,
fourth chief, do we need another vehicle?
no.
No.
Okay.
The command vehicles, there's one replacement and one addition from memory.
Yeah, and they're a ways out yet. They're like 2027, 2030.
Does that make sense? So this
It
is
does.
what we're putting away.
Yeah, I get that's what we're putting away, but I didn't know if it was because of the growth in leadership or what you explained.
Correct.
Any other questions?
No.
Comments, things you'd like to see different?
I'll listen to everyone else's. There might be something that I agree or disagree, but no, that was my first
Okay, Reed?
takeaway.
Yeah, great work for the staff. Just general comment is, I'd like to get that increase down under 10% from just the general levy. So, I mean, I think the milestone pay is definitely needed, but I just don't think I can support the full milestone. I definitely would be behind the milestone +1. But I think if we do the full milestone, we'd have to start finding some other savings and other defer capital or something, right? I mean, I think we need to make sure the current employees are well compensated. I don't want to have the situation where the only way people can get raises is by leaving the city of Carver for a different place. But I don't know in our current budget, that just seems like taking too big a chunk in 1 year. I would fully support raising it to the match full milestone for next budget, but I just don't think we can get it all done this year.
Any other feedback, questions?
No, I mean, that's my big one. I'm sure there's other 1 or 2 easy things, but I think that's my main sticking point.
Kristy?
I have a question about when we're looking at the hiring for public services. Can we go back to that slide where we're talking about? Yep. Okay. So it says 13,100 addition to public services budget for 2025 for new hires. If we are adding a mechanic halfway through 2025, is that right?
Yes, so that the number is probably, it's probably looks a little deceiving, but part of their pay comes out of enterprise funds as well.
Okay, thank you, because I thought, I don't know how we're getting someone
Yeah.
that.
Mechanic for
Money.
13.
Budget savings, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing the work.
Let's focus on your strengths.
You know, I have to agree with Reed when I saw that the 12.61%. It was a little. We've had a couple of big jumps in the last couple of years, and so it's a little bit. It feels a little high to me. It looks a little high to me. I realize all of the things that we're trying to do with it, but again, I'm waiting to hear a little bit from the rest of the council too on what they think about it. But I do think that we're making a pretty significant jump again. And I think it just seems a little bit high, and there's maybe something or some things that we need to look at as a city we just can't do right now. But it's not just the thought, of what I think it is. I'd like to hear what the rest of the council has for that also. And I think it's interesting, Reed, that you brought up going up one step rather than the additional.
Yeah.
And I wonder what that looks like for what that would bring us down to in the budget if we went back a little bit on that employee
So if you go to,
compensation.
Kristy, if you go to page 2 of the memo, the milestone 1 takes the investment from basically 150,000 to 96,000 on the general fund side, so you'd be looking at 54,000.
Okay. I'll hear a little bit more from the rest of the council then before. I think that was the big thing that caught me was the question I asked about the pay for public services. But I will defer to everyone else for now. Thank you.
Eric?
Okay, so just in the 12.61, this is where we get to that average of 128 per average household, correct? And doing that, we've talked a lot about fully funding things like equipment purchases, so we don't end up taking a loan out in the future that we pay interest on. So a schedule, and we've talked a lot about this in our work sessions, moving to that long-term planning, long-term budgeting to reduce, kicking the can down the road and then a larger loan to pay for something we were going to have to pay for anyway. So this fully funds the plan that we've talked about in 2025, and there'll be additional years, but this keeps us on track to do that. The employee performance pay, the milestone program, I think a lot of thought and development has gone into this. I think one of the biggest challenges we have as a city is retaining and attracting talent to Carver. The city we have today is representative of the quality of people we have working in all of our departments. So are we getting a return on that investment? I think we are. I think that the recent survey we did showed that by and large, people are very satisfied with the level of service that they receive. And to keep that going and to get the people we need to continue that, I think we need to make that investment. I really thought that this employee performance pay, the milestone program is an innovative way to encourage development within a job title, to give somebody who's kind of stuck in a job title because they don't have an opportunity to do something else, a way to increase their pay. Whatever they do to step up in that milestone program, I think we reap the reward for that in their productivity. So I think that's a great program. So when we talk about the increase in cost for our taxpayers, are they going to get the value out of that $128? I absolutely think they will, and the worry is if we try to make it less, all we really end up doing is shifting cost to the next year, or we shift cost to the next council with a lot of interest. So as much time as we have spent talking about maintaining a steady trajectory and fully funding projects and employee retention and acquisition, I support the current proposal.
Thank you.
That's me.
Okay. Chris, do you think of anything else?
Mayor,
Yeah.
I just want to make one comment. So
Sure.
normally it's easy, and like Lynn has different averages. We talk about like employee pay across the board. Like, you're usually not in a position where you're increasing that individually, but that's the case that we're in. And so when there was a number of, like, I think it was 12.5, and the milestone on average, milestone 1 is 11 3/8. But actually it's, we have some folks that are below the minimum that are gonna, in order to get them out, we have, like, it's noted in my memo, we have folks going anywhere from 6 to 26%. And so I would say, although this doesn't help you, hopefully it's maybe clarifying that they're, on average, yes, there'd be a 12%, but there are some people getting 6 and some people based on circumstances that are probably a little bit harder to explain that would get a 26%. Just based on what that employee or that pay for, or the classification and compensation study told us related to the Pierce City. So I think you can characterize it as a 12.5 or 11.5, et cetera, on average, but I just want to be fully transparent on line of sight that it's going to be individual based on, years of service and then where they land within that scale. The The milestone +1 is a little bit more consistent because there isn't a wider range. But that's where frankly the heavier costs come in on the milestone. Full milestone is your most tenured employees that are, you know, probably below 50% of the way through the scale. Getting them up that's your most significant investment. And so I'll leave it there.
Okay. Let's see, well, I will go. This is the budget that we've been talking about. We've been doing a lot of work to go through the long-term, the 10-year financial plans and what we need to be putting away to be able to replace the community park pavilion. You know, when we were sitting here, and it was probably just Kristy, Lori, and I in early 2020, and we were talking about franchise fees, and we instead went the pavement management plan route and decided to include those in our budget. $100,000 seemed like a huge, big, scary number, and it was back then. Now we're putting away $520,000, is that right? Like, here we are, and we've really grown that program, and like Brent said, I feel like I'm a pavement snob. I'll draw you through other communities and be like, they don't have a pavement management plan. You know, so the investment that we are making in our communities' streets is significant. I say that because I think it's important and to demonstrate that I recognize the value of fully funding these accounts and these funds so that we don't have to bond for them and that we can keep that needle moving down as far as what we're paying on our debt, both now and in the future. I went back and I took a look at the employee survey that we did just in the last year. And if you take a look at it, let's see, where are we? On the employee survey, there's a question that says, the city provides competitive compensation. Among the full-time staff, 28% were undecided. On the part-time staff, 33% were undecided, and 30% disagree or strongly disagree. In both of those categories, full-time and part-time staff, that was the question that had the highest number, highest percentage of undecided or disagree or strongly disagree. Out of those, 20 questions that we asked on the survey? So people recognize this. I support funding the name is escaping me. The employee.
EPPP.
The employee pay performance.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Employee pay for performance. I support funding that fully. I think that it's so cliche, but it truly is the case. Our employees are our greatest investment. There are folks who have been with the city for a number of years and who are just stuck. Brent's example that he gave here, and it's both in the memo of just the number of folks that we've had apply for that public services position in a month's time, saying that the pay was going to be higher is really significant. So I think that is the proof in the pudding. Not to mention, I think that this is a lot of putting our money where our mouth is. If we want employees to stay with the city, we've got to pay them like we want them to stay with the city. So that's really important to me. Let's see. Like Brent said, this provides increases for the employees who are at the most risk of leaving for more money elsewhere. They're anchored into these low end of their pay scales, and they could probably make the amount of money that we're proposing by walking across the street. So I think that this is a good budget. I am in favor, if we want to lower it, I like what Brent proposed about using the money from today's bond sale to help do that as far as putting that towards whatever it was that you proposed. I'm sorry. The equipment certificate, the equipment fund. So That's where I'm sitting. I feel really strongly, because I worry that if we don't fund the employee pay scale now, that whomever is sitting in our chairs next year won't see that as the priority. Any other comments?
So what's the general I mean, I agree with the employee thing. I mean, I kind of think of that as like a capital investment that we maybe didn't plan for coming into this year, right? What the number would be. I'm actually glad we were able to get it with the union that makes the number higher. But I really think we have to consider, maybe we don't increase the street maintenance by 100,000. Maybe we just do 50,000, or maybe we just do the parks by 25, right? I mean, I think if we really want to fund the employees, I just don't think we have this year's capacity for all that capital expenses. I mean, I guess I'll treat the employees as a capital, right? I mean, it's an investment in the future. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the 50,000, that helps from the bond sale, and then, I mean, I don't know. Do 20, I mean, I love parks, but 25,000 or some, just trying to think of, I mean, does that, Lynn, how much?
So, Reed, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So there's this table at the bottom of page 1
Sure.
that says what we need to cut in order to get to
Yeah, like 150, right? So I was just
No, it's
doing,
131.
So Lynn just did a calculation. In order
Okay.
to get it sub 10, you'd have to be around the neighborhood of 120,000 in cuts to the first draft.
that would not include the proposed bond premium though, right?
Right, so the bond premium, if you took that would cut 56,000 from that 120. So if you found another, or gave us direction on another 64,000, that would get you sub 10.
This is your first
Yeah,
cycle. It's hard,
I know.
right?
Would, if we spend 470 on street maintenance, do we have to push any projects back for next year?
Yeah, I think getting through the next, I think it was through 2027, Lynn, where it was,
Negative.
the fund balance is pretty close to zero. Once we get past 27, it's a little
27,
better,
okay.
but we're pretty tight the next few years.
Okay, that makes a difference. Yeah. It's hard.
Hi, I'm back.
Go ahead, Kristy.
Can you hear me? Okay. So, I think we've had a lot of interesting discussion tonight, and this is a lot to, I guess, kind of chew on. There's different views that are coming in. When's the next time we look at this and have this come back that we can make comment for staff to work with this?
So your next work session is Tuesday, September 3rd. And then, so we can have as many we can schedule additional work sessions. Your plan to adopt a preliminary levy at your second meeting in September. So you could do the work session on the 3rd, and if you're ready to go and give a number, you could do that. Or if you wanted to schedule a special work session on that off Monday, you could also do that. So to Kristy's question too, if you just want to let it sink in, we can just we can just put this stuff back in the packet for your next meeting. But if there's different scenarios or things that you want us to run numbers on, we'll take that and then show you that. In the past, there have been some things that straight away the council says, yep, eliminate this and that, or add this. And then we've shown you, but if there's, nothing right now on the tip of your tongue that you want to have done, and you just want more time, then, we'll bring this all back to the meeting on the 3rd.
I also,
I think,
Kristy, real quickly, I just also want to remind us, this is the preliminary levy that we're setting. It's the do not exceed number. So I think we can still do some refinement between the end of September or September 16th and December when we pass the final budget.
Yeah,
And that's a
true.
worry for me. If we start lowering it now, we box ourselves in.
Yeah.
That's true.
Eric, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear what you
Oh,
said.
I'm sorry. So the concern I have about lowering it now is we box ourselves in to a lower number.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
as a preliminary levy, I think what we have is what we've discussed. It's prudent, but it does give us an opportunity to further refine.
I think it also gives the community the option to come and provide their feedback too, because we've got truth in taxation. We did that. We heard from folks last year, but we didn't hear from anybody saying, this is a ridiculous budget. There were some other questions and concerns, but it wasn't necessarily on the budget itself. So I think, again, knowing that this is the absolute do not exceed, and kind of, I like
That's
what you
true.
said
Like
about
that.
boxing us
Yeah.
in. It not only gives the opportunity for folks to provide feedback in a formal way, but it also sets the budget that we have planned for. Because I think, like, as you're seeing, where do we cut? Do
Yeah.
we cut from
No.
here so
Yeah,
that
I
we
know.
short ourselves next year?
Yeah.
Or where do we want to kind of short ourselves for what we've planned? And that's always the hard part. Welcome,
Yeah.
welcome to budget season.
So Lynn, I just had a quick question on the assessment spreadsheet table thing. So the new.
You're on slide number.
Slide number 10. Yeah, that's much
Can I finish
easier.
my question really quick,
Oh,
Courtney?
go ahead,
Oh, I'm
Kristy.
sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Yep,
Thank you.
we should be breaking
Okay.
here shortly, but go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, are we there?
yeah, we got you.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. Oh, the screen was just switching. Okay. So Brent, so September 3rd is our next one. So, but the actual setting the preliminary, it has to be done by which date?
The preliminary levy needs to be certified to the county by September 30th. So you can, and that's, as the mayor mentioned, that's the budget for the budget. So you
Yeah.
can lower it, but you can't raise it. But, you know, you're meeting on the 3rd, you're meeting on the 16th. You know, you could schedule a special meeting on the 30th to adopt it if you needed more time. We have, you know, basically 6 weeks to get the council in a position where you feel comfortable with adopting a preliminary levy.
Okay, for myself, I'm fine with where it's at right now with the, check note of, because I want to go back and noodle some of the information and some of the other council members' comments that we had tonight. So if we kind of stay going forward with where we're at tonight, I obviously do want to see it on the next council agenda so that we can discuss it once we've had a little bit more time to kind of digest the presentation and all the information that we have on this.
Reed, what was your question?
So we look at the total value change, right? So that's the assessed value of all the property in the city, and then we had 41 million in new construction. So the $4 million, 4.6 million in market change, that's the estimated increase for the rest of the properties, basically. Okay, so in general, that's why you said that the property values were generally flat for the rest of it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, that's, I was just double checking that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we are at a point where I think
Yep.
we should break. But I don't want to rush this conversation because I think it's important. I feel though, however, we are at a
Yeah.
good ending point. Is this something we want to pick up during the meeting?
At the end, yeah, I
And
think
that would be
so.
helpful? I'm not feeling it either.
Yeah, I don't, oh, after, no, I think I'm done for today.
Kristy,
Yeah.
are we done discussing the budget, in your opinion?
For today?
Said shake? Yep, we got
I
nothing.
think so.
Yeah. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Are we done?
We can't hear you, Kristy.
Thumbs up or thumbs down?
Thumbs
Okay,
up.
thumbs
Okay,
up, we're
good.
done.
All right.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, we are done with that. We will hold 10-year utilities infrastructure for the meeting. Sorry, Aaron. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
A motion by Councilmember Welch,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Sarah. All those in favor?
You gotta do
We
roll
have to do
call?
roll call.
Oh, that's right.
Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Mock,
Aye.
Councilmember Welch,
Aye.
Councilmember Sayer,
Aye.
Councilmember Pershman,
Aye.
Mayor Johnson.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.